Hey everybody, welcome back. Our next presenter is Robert Maxim. Now, this afternoon, he's going to talk to us about Atlantis and Lemuria. Look, it's not all in the history books, okay? Robert gets his information from a much higher source. He's been shown the truths of what happened back when Atlantis and Lemuria were front and center, were the cornerstone of humanity way back then. He's going to talk about what it was, actually where it was, and the actual evidence, because there is a lot of it as well. So why is this important that we go back and look at this ancient historical occurrence? Because it is actually now the foundation stone for where we, humanity, us, where we are at today. We made a decision way back then, and we're still paying for it today because apparently it wasn't the right one. And there is even a connection with this presentation and everything you're going to learn. There is an absolute connection right into the contact modalities that we're all so interested in learning more about today. Please welcome Robert Maxim.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being amongst us. As I look out to the audience, I'm looking at myself. We are separate beings in separate bodies in this dimension. But we have a consciousness, and in higher dimensions, we are one. We're brothers, we're sisters. We belong to a unified mental field. There's no secrets amongst us. There are secrets here. We don't dare tell what we are, who we are, what we want to one another. We hide. We fear. We want what the other person has. We have greed. There's malice in the heart, but there's light in the soul, where we are one. And it's the attempt at that one to make a presence here in this dimension and educate that physical person, that physical mind, that ego that lives here, to show it the right ropes and to bring it up so that we don't have to come back here. That's where we failed. Now, why am I bringing up the subject of Atlantis and Lemuria? Because back then, we were not studying contact modalities. We were contact modalities. We had many capabilities. We were wise. We were traveling to other worlds. The consciousness was beginning to set hold. And we were becoming more and more aware of mental capabilities. Yes, we had telepathy. We had out-of-body experiences. We had astral travel. We had physical travel. We were very advanced. And beings of light were here teaching us these things that today we're just scratching the surface of. But remember that all of these capabilities come second. Our first responsibility is to educate the ego, lovingly recognize it. Fools rush in. First, do what's right for your soul. Do your mission to recognize and to grow your ego. Then let these capabilities come to you. That, my friends, is what sunk Atlantis. Haste makes waste. My fall is your fall. Your negative thoughts are my negative thoughts. The injuries I cause you, I cause to the entire infinite. There's no room for negation. There's room for progression. Whatever I think of doing to you, I have to build it within myself first. Like a dish, like a chef. I add all of the ingredients, and once that negative soup of evil and wickedness is created in me, then I open my lips, I estrange my face, I do the full theatrics to scare you, and then here comes the blast. And I give you negativity to make you feel bad, to control you. But which was the first person that was impacted? Me, of course. The ingredients came from me. The ingredients stay with me. The dish stays with me. And this is why the brothers call us pandamentalists, mental pandemic. We are mentally ill because we don't know what we do and we don't take care of our soul. We waste it. We trash it. We do wicked things with it, just like we did in Atlantis. So what is this presentation all about? I will show you evidence of Atlantis. I had 35 viewings of each, of Atlantis and of Lemuria. I saw the decay. I saw the destruction. I saw the wars with the colonies. I wasn't the only one. I have confirmation from other individuals who, without telling them any of the details, came forward and we confirmed many of these acts. Unfortunately, these witnesses could not be here today, but there's several of them. What I'm going to show you, folks, this is not science fiction. I would not stand here and put my name forward with a nice story. This is true. This was true. And remember that everything that you are right now, every thought, every idea, every desire, every emotion, every tear, every anger, you were once. Whatever you are now, you were then. You don't need to have Akashic records read. You are your Akashic record. If you only stop to hear your thoughts and recognize your emotions and just observe them, but don't serve them, just observe them, you will see the person you are now, which was the person you were then. Educate that thought. Love it with your heart. And once you do, you will evolve your ego, and it will be subservient to the consciousness, so that contact modalities kick in. This is how it works. And you will stop the pandemic, putting fear and anger onto another soul. That soul now upset passes that upsetness to someone else, and that person to someone else, and to someone else, and someone else. It's contagious. It's got to stop. We all want peace in the world. We want the peace to be done for us, but no, the peace is you. If you're not at peace, if you have not achieved mastership over your ego, all is lost. Peace is garnered one soul at a time. Stop the pandemic. Vaccinate your soul with truth, with sincerity. And let this presentation help you on your way to the true contact modalities so you know what we all did. A lot of slides, a lot of information. I'm going to go fast again. Atlantis and Lemuria, myths, mysteries, plurality of life, and intrigue. Atlantis and Lemuria have it all, uniquely qualified to attest the greatest hunt for truth of mankind has ever known. Yet, it is set aloft in plain sight to blind eyes. There are legends of great civilizations that rose from deep water seeded with prior fruits of life and power. Consumed by greed and ego, all for naught. Serving death's greatest yearnings. The Bermuda Triangle, lost people, ships, planes, and even time and space. So host many headlines, yet silence drowns our intellect. Ancient civilizations, aliens, and strange phenomena occupy our curiosity, wondering if these places were actually real. Where? How? Why? This knowledge is not for the weak at heart, but he that shall learn from past deeds and sincerely steps forth to be counted and healed of wrongs. The bedrocks of our ancestry are before us. The past rises, and it does matter, for our legacy is sunken beneath dark waters and soul. Far from shores of hope, lost in evil deeds, therein committed, but nothing like restless memories returning to a crime scene. Today you will see my personal recalls of these past lands and times. I will show evidence to go with it. For many, it will be a return to their roots and bedrock, a grim reminder of grave, grave darkness. For we are today, every act, every thought, every desire, and every motive and action that we once were. Hopefully, after this presentation, you will begin to finally heal and start on your way back up to the light. A little bit of chronology. Shambhala was here 400,000 years ago. The brothers were amongst us. We turned our backs to them, and they had to take Shambhala back up to the celestial kingdoms. Lemuria came 260,000 years BC in the Indian Ocean. We turned our backs on the brothers again. Lemuria destroyed itself 75,000 BC, and I'm going to show you evidence of that. You started up in Mongolia. We turned our backs, destroyed ourselves. Atlantis came up 60,000 BC. We turned our backs on the brothers again. Again and again. Until we destroyed it 10,000 BC. Egypt came again. Peru came again. Bolivia came again. United States came again. History repeats itself. And unless we get down to the roots of what's causing us to turn our backs and go with entertainment and spiritual fun, we're going to continue doing it again. What's my mission in this life? To show you what we've done after I myself saw what I've done. I have to give you an apology for having led you wrong in the past, because I bear a lot of responsibility for not carrying my yoke the way I should have. I had a choice. I went wrong. I testify it. But I don't hate myself. It's time for me to leave, to change. You have all been living in this planet long enough. You've been living without the contact modalities for too long. You've been praising your ego for too long. Time to change. Time to get out of here. Who wants to leave? You just heard how. We've all heard about Atlantis from Plato's account. Now, many experts supposedly say that his account is nothing more than a placebo, a political exposition of those times. That's what experts believe. But is it a realistic historical account? I mean, did this really happen? Is it the only account of Atlantis that we have, as experts claim? What about its location? Was life in Atlantis and Lemuria as described by various sources? Is it correct? You're going to be surprised today. And hopefully what you will see will bring back memories, and then you will know. You will know what you did. You will know why you're here. You will understand your thoughts and why your thoughts tell you to do the things they do. And finally put a stop to it and head towards the light. This is a strong speech. It's not me telling you this. I have some help. With that, let me share with you what Atlantis and Lemuria were like. I hope you all watch and remember. That, my friends and brothers, that's where we came from. That's what we did. You know, we could have been somewhere else today if we had stuck to the plan. We didn't. First of all, where was Atlantis? I've heard just about every excuse to put Atlantis on the map, even Antarctica. Each of those yellow dots is a possibility, but it's not backed by historical evidence. Yes, there is historical evidence, quite a bit of it actually. What destroyed it? Here it is. People were persuaded to abandon sincerity and testimony, key to wisdom and evolution, and seek power, and yes, intimacy. You can have it now. You don't have to be sincere. You don't have to be ashamed every time you have to say the truth about yourself. Forget it. Just have fun. Just enjoy the following. Sincerity supposedly created guilt. It was bad for you. It suppressed and oppressed your true nature. Who was saying this? This is not the light, right? There was a dark priesthood in Atlantis, and they were individuals who were, let's say, they did not wish to qualify. What is a qualification? A qualification in brotherhood terms is a time when you go before the masters and you spill the beans about the negativity that you feel. Let's say you testify your sins. But whatever you don't see, whatever is hiding, the master is going to pick it right up and throw it at you like a mirror, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And yes, it can break you to tears to find out you have such garbage, such darkness inside of you. That was a qualification. This dark priesthood said, I don't want any of that, so I'm going to convince the people to throw the brothers away. So what did they say? Hey, come with us. Come with us. We're going to show you, we're going to give you mental powers. Okay? We're going to give you ESP. We're going to let you have out-of-body experiences. Yeah, astral travel. And you'll learn how to mentally control other people. And then you can convince them to come over to our site. Sounds pretty dark, doesn't it? How many of us do that today? Instead of analyzing your ego and following the path of light. How many of you have abandoned the ego like these people did? Not only that, if you did this, you could become a god. Remember Genesis 3 and the fruit? What did the snake say to Eve? Because when you eat of it, you shall know all things and be as gods. There you have it. That's what the priesthood did. Telepathic and astral projection capabilities and obsessive control by the ego. There was not some astral force possessing your fellow man. It was us. How bad can that be? If we think that demons do that, then connect the dots. What did we become? Don't answer. The Brotherhood was ordered to leave the planet. Followers of light fled to outlying colonies like Egypt, Peru, Mexico City, even Cuba, where I'm from. Atlanteans went to war against the colonies, but used those power towers that you saw in the video as a weapon. Why? Those power towers controlled weather. They could cause thunderstorms, tornadoes at will. They could also bring up volcanoes where the colonies were, and they wreaked havoc across the planet for 5,000 years, trying to kill the survivors of the light. Eventually, because of mismanagement, the power towers blew up. That was the end of the game. That's what destroyed Atlantis. And if you look at this pattern, this is the same thing that happened to you in Mongolia. This is the same thing that happened to Lemuria. And it could happen here. And it's beginning to happen here. Because that's all we know how to do, to repeat the past until we sense it and we turn it around. Let's look at some evidence, because we've said some very important things here, and you're probably saying, where's the evidence? Here it goes. You've been told that Plato wrote a document which was a political document, and it had no worth. It was just a political expose. And that's it. No, sir. There are over 1,200 historical documents on Atlantis. These are just a few. Now, notice this small blue slit right here. An enlargement of it is down here. And you can see all kinds of writings from all over the world, not just Greek, but Egyptian, from India, and from the Americas. Transglobal societies and American Indians, they have history that goes back to 10,000 BC. And many Indian tribes say that they are descendants of Atlanteans, and that's confirmed. Now, notice where Plato is. Way down here. And people say, well, how did Plato come up with that information? Well, let's take a look. The first thing we have is Ogyges, the flood of 10,000 BC. It was the first worldwide flood at the time of the primeval ruler Ogyges in Greece. It's dated by Plato at about 10,000 BC. 4,000 BC, the Book of the Dead is an Egyptian funeral text. Now, please, everything that I have in yellow, remember, so you can connect the dots. Or you can see it later in the DVD. All these details will be on the screen. King Thoth governed an island in the west that was destroyed by waters. And guess what? He took survivors to Egypt. Bingo. That's the Book of the Dead. But there's more. Oh, do I have surprises for you? Keep your eyes peeled. 2000 BC, India of all places, the Vishnu Purana, ancient text from Hinduism, places a white island called Atala in the Western Ocean. That would be the Atlantic. At the same approximate latitude as the Canary Islands. Well, you know what's also in those latitudes? How about the Bahamas? Bimini. Remember Edgar Cayce? Here's evidence for Edgar Cayce. And by the way, all of the references are down here at the bottom of your screen. 1300 BC, the Turin Papyrus, a map that shows 10 king gods in a foreign country in ancient times. It mentions all of the kings: Ptah, Ra, Su, Seb, Osiris, Set, Horus, Thoth. Ma and Horus. Supposedly, its government ended around, guess what? 9850 BC. Same time frame. You're going to see that time frame within a 1.3% variance. 1190 BC, the Sanchuniathon, Phoenician. It's a Phoenician theological book that mentions ancient, here we go again, Atlantean kings, and mentions the legend of Thoth and Atlas. We keep going down the historical trail, and we find in 735 BC the Hesiod theogony. Again, remember, everything in yellow is important. The Titans lose a 10-year battle. Then they are confined beneath the Western Ocean by the Deucalion deluge. Deucalion was a son of Prometheus, the Titan. So who are the Titans? The dark priesthood. Now, for those of you that are savvy in biblical writing, you know that there was a deluge, and you know that there was an ark that was constructed, right? Where Noah saved his family. Here's Deucalion saving his family in an ark. There are about 1,300 ark historical references throughout the world. One of them that I can recall is a Navajo legend where Atlanteans saved themselves from the Atlantean flood inside of an ark conch. You have Peruvian Inca Indians that believe that in their flood, a family of 8 is a critical number if you read your Bible. 8 saved in an ark. Is it just coincidence that every corner of the world has the same story? Even the number, even the word ark. Now, let's keep going down the history trail. What's coming is going to amaze you. 600 BC, India again, Mahabharata, the Karnapava. Following the 10-year war, Atala Island sinks in the Western Ocean in the Atlantic. Its people lived in a white island. The story repeats. Now, this is just fantastic right here. Listen to this. Tripura, its capital city, was laid out in circular fashion with 3 concentric rings. Isn't that the same description from Plato? Hello. Here we go. The best is yet to come. 590 BC, Solon went to Egypt, talked to Sonchis. He was a priest of Sais, Egypt, and he got the history of Atlantis from him. Later on, he passed it on to Dropedes. But what's critical is I want you to remember this name. This information was read from what was called the Syriatic columns. Remember that name, Syriatic columns. Syriatic columns. 460 BC, Hellenicus, Greek author, Chronology mentioning Poseidon, Atlas, and Atlantis. Are we beginning to see that what we've been told, that Plato was the only historical figure talking about Atlantis and that it was just him dreaming up a political story, that's totally bunk? Why? What has been discovered that they want us not to know this? Hold on. 450 BC, Tinhinan and the Tuareg of Libya. Princess Tinhinan escaped from the Atlantean continent before the cataclysm. Describes how Tinhinan was followed by men of great stature, light hair, and slanted eyes. From the Orion constellation. From the Orion constellation. Now, Nephil. You've heard that term before. What does Nephil mean? Nephilim. If you use Hematra in Hebrew, it means wise, kind men from Orion. It doesn't mean giants. And the story of Genesis 6:1 is incorrectly translated. In those days there were giants. Then and after them came the sons of God, the Ben Elohim. And they were the ones that caused the disaster, not the Nephil. It was the sons of God that impregnated the women, and everything went to chaos. The Nephil were the teachers, the brothers. The sons of men was the priesthood. We got it all turned around. Again, why? If it's clearly written, we just don't read. The surprises keep coming. 450 BC, the famous, dead-on, best historian of all times, Herodotus. What does he write? He calls the Atlantis Ocean, and speaks of an Atlantean tribe in North Africa, which were the Tinhinan and the Tuareg. Both writings are now confirmed. 400 BC, Syrianus confirms Atlantis was real. 380 BC, Theopompus, Greek historian of great verbal and writing attire, writes about Atlantis, claims it was an enormous island in size and its cities were made of gold, free from illness and manual labor. Where did he get this information? We're coming to that. What we've all been waiting for, Plato, 350 BC. He gives a detailed description of Atlantis, destroyed about 9590 BC, same time frame. He said it was a large island west of Gibraltar. Beyond it was another continent, America. Read Timaeus and Critias. It is right there. How did he know there was a continent beyond the Atlantic? And here he said the city was laid out in 3 concentric circles. Also places the Ogyges flood around 10,000 BC. It's the same time frame mentioned by the Turin Papyrus of 9850 BC, written 1,000 years prior. Is everything beginning to match for you? You haven't seen anything yet. Just getting warmed up. 350 BC, Aristotle. He said there was a large island, Antilia. And that's a Carthaginian name, and that's where most of these names come from. It was in the Atlantic. He did not believe all of Plato's details, but did place the island in the Atlantic Ocean. 340 BC, the Bhavishya Purana mentions, again, Atala, White Island in the Atlantic Ocean, inhabited by Magas. Now, what are Magas? They're Brahmin priests, wise, elevated priests. Only unfortunate thing is, in the end, they had to leave. 300 BC, now the fun begins. Crantor, a commentary on Plato's Timaeus. He confirmed that Sais priests in Egypt showed Solon the pillars of, or the Siriatic columns of Atlantis that still existed. Prepare yourselves. Remember these terms. Thoth, 9850 BC, 10 kings, gods, islands, 10-year war, Atala, Antilia, Atlantis, island between Europe and the Americas, and the Siriatic columns. Brace yourselves. You're looking at Manetho. He was an Egyptian priest around 200 BC. This is the key to unlock this mystery. He mentions the Siriatic columns inscribed with the history of Atlantis. He wrote about it. The same column references as Solon and Crantor. Sincilius steps into the picture, and he says that Manetho wrote the book of Sothis. This is important. Though there's controversy because Sincilius' introduction is in modern terms, nevertheless, this is a strong reference to these columns. Where were these columns? Sincilius comes to the rescue again. Syriatic is a Greek word that comes from Syriac or Sothis. So Sothis, Syriat, or Syriatis is the same thing. The deification of Sothis was in Egypt Sobdet, or what we know as Sirius today. It is a star in Canis Majoris identified with, yes, Isis. So when you hear Syriatic, Sothis, Sobdet, Sirius, Isis, it's all one and the same. According to the book of Sothis, Syriatic columns, or the Isis columns, are in subterranean temples. The columns were inscribed by Thoth in the ancient tongue before the flood. And I might just have that writing for you here in a minute. These give evidence of Atlantean colonization of Egypt. According to Flavius Josephus, he was one of the greatest Jewish historians that ever lived. Flavius Josephus. According to him, Sirius is the home of Isis, or Sirius. Was Isis from here? No. Manetho, Isis stela is kept in subterranean tunnels. Could it be Edgar Case's Hall of Records? What do you think? Look at these hieroglyphics. It's called a dream stela, and it shows cities beneath the Sphinx. It's right in front of the Sphinx. There it is, the dream stela. It is called the House of Thoth. Look at that house. The Sphinx on top, tunnels and rooms beneath. There's something beneath the Sphinx. This is not the only picture. Behold, there's another one. 2 for the price of 1, and they show the same thing. And you can see the servants offering stuff to put inside, store. Let's look at Edgar Cayce. Atlantis history is beneath the Sphinx, confirmed by Manetho, Sincilius, and many Greek philosophers. Now, recent excavations in front and beneath the Sphinx have been carried out. I'll show you that evidence. But information on what was found has been kept secret. So I sent a secret agent out there. He said that the front of the paws was dug out. There's a big hole, and it's all covered now by wooden planks. You can't see what's down there. This is what has been found beneath the Sphinx. A shaft discovered in 1926, another one in 1977, and they run all the way down through the Sphinx. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. And all the way out to the river. Each of these red spots is a cavity that has been discovered. Entrances into the Sphinx. It was even a head entrance that was covered up early in the century, and the Osiris sarcophagus was found 40 meters before ground in one of the tunnels. 2 chambers were found, large rooms, including a small chamber. And everybody wonders, is that what got dug up? Could that be the Hall of Records? Hold on. You're looking at some of the entrances. A well entrance on the right, side entrances. Feast your eyes on this. This is the David H. Lewis expedition. What you're looking at here is the normal, what we've known about the pyramid over time, the different halls that have been found in rooms. But he found 146 meters off the ground a secret stone entrance that led to staircases that go down, 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 down to a 4-story room, a sealed room with multiple entrances. This room is 177 meters beneath the surface. And what does it have? You're looking at a drawing of it. This is a Hall of Records. But that's not all that he found. That tunnel that you were looking at in the Sphinx, these shafts, one of them leads to this room. Below it, maybe some 10 meters, is what Lewis called a trans tube, a metro. This is the writing of Thoth. The Syriatic columns have been found. You have not been told. Zahi Hawass has been involved in these discoveries. He's been silenced. Let's rush through these other statements here. Poseidonis. Atlanta, or Poseidonis, was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, Gibraltar. Again, out into the Atlantic Ocean. Marcellus, Ethiopian history. Get this. The people of the Canary Islands preserve Atlantean traditions. They claim there were 10 islands, the number 10 again. It can't be the Canary Islands because there's only 8 islands, officially. Diodorus wrote that thousands of years prior, Phoenicians visited a very large island in the Atlantic. Timagenes wrote about the war between Atlanteans and Europe. Here's another reference. Now, ancient French tribes claimed that Atlantis was their place of origin. This is just outstanding. Statius Sabosus, 50 BC. Get this. The doors of Atlantis were 40 days by boat from Cape Verde Islands westward. That's easy to figure out. I'll show you in a minute. He claimed this was a voyage from the Hesperids, the Atlantides, nymphs of the west, to the Gorgodes in the Atlantic Ocean. 40 days by boat. Christopher Columbus made the same trip in 35 to 43 days. I'm pretty darn sure he passed by Atlantis. I'll show you the routes. There it is. Cape Verde to Guadeloupe, straight westward. 2,700 miles, 40-day sail at 2.5 knots, 44 kilometers. There's Atlantis. Actually, all of this was Atlantis. These are the Columbus trips. Here you go. Cape Verde, Guadeloupe. Same trip, same time. Strabo, Geographica, claimed that Plato's account was no work of fiction. 25 BC, Plutarch. This is critical to this equation. Check this out. He gave detailed description from 6, not 1, 6 Greek philosophers that visited Egypt and received information on Atlantis. Not 1, not 2, 6. Behold, Solon spoke to Sonchis. Tales of Miletus. Pythagoras spoke with Ouenufis of Heliopolis. Why haven't we been told about this? It's in Wikipedia. You can look it up. I'll give you the reference in a minute. Here's Plato. Plato himself went down there to look at this. He didn't just get the information from Solon. He trusted, but he verified. He went down there to figure it out. Eudoxus of Cnidus spoke to Xenophius of Memphis, and Crantor himself. You can see that these people didn't just write fiction. They checked it out. There's the references, and they'll be on the DVD. Philo Judaeus accepts Atlantis as real. Pomponius Mela places Atlantis in a temperate zone on a line from Cuba and Cape Verde Islands north towards Iceland. What does that triangle look like? Anybody ever seen the Bermuda Triangle? Doesn't it look like it? Bingo. 200 AC, Tertullian. Tertullian was one of the brightest biblical scholars of all times. He was a historian, and he was a founder of biblical Christianity. Look what he said. Connects the flood with Atlantis sinking. Why aren't we told this? Especially in biblical ecology. 230, Claudius Aelianus refers to Atlantis in his book, The Nature of Animals. 320 AC, this is critical. Arnobius accepts the reality of Plato's Atlantis, but look what he says. He starts off by saying, we caused it. We caused it. 10,000 years ago, many men left the island called Neptune's Atlantis, as stated by Plato, and they certainly ruined and eliminated innumerable tribes. Who did this? We caused it. Reincarnation. How about that? The glorious Arnobius, father of Christianity. 450 AC, Proclus Lycaeus speaks of islands in the external ocean. 10 islands again. 7 were small, Persephone. 3 large, Poseidon. 550 AC, Cosmas Encycloplaustus confirms Timaeus' story of 10 kings. 1200 AC, Codex Cortesianus, Mayan Atlantean destruction. 1300 AC, Dresden Codex, Mayan Atlantean destruction. 1379, Hebrew treatise, habitable regions first emerged in the Western Ocean and beyond. In the early days, there was an island in the middle of the ocean. Today it's covered by waters 10 degrees into the sea. That is precisely 692 equatorial miles of shore. It's difficult to find the relative point, but it deduces longitude from the point where the sea begins. Okay? Assuming the sea begins off the islands, 692 miles off, we have this right here. The Atlantis seamount, the Plato seamount, etc. Sunken. Volcanic chains. 1500 AC, the Chilam Balam Shumayel, Mayan Yucatan Atlantean destruction. 1500 AC, the Popol Vuh Quiché, Mayan Guatemalan Atlantean destruction. The Mayans have all kinds of information on this. And this is the cream of it all. Take a look at this. Melted granite. A wall of granite melted all the way down to here. What can do that? Did you know that the granite blocks that were used in Peru to construct all the different cities, including Cusco, their granite does not have water? In other words, those rocks were not chiseled. They were melted. And you can even see some of the marks of the molds that were used to hold the shape of the stone as it was melted into place. What in the world can do that? Can you imagine the temperature required to do that? How about a 700-ton stone? Melted. This is in Sacsayhuaman, Peru. We have claims from Native Americans. It came from a large sunken island in the Atlantic. The Maidu and the Pomo natives of Northern California relate to the Kuksu deluge. Carib natives, they claim that Amaicaca survived a great deluge. The Guiana natives of Brazil claim that Mairá, king and survivor of a sunken island. The Argentine natives speak of the Mataco deluge, the Tucua and Chaco. Paraguay natives, and they even name it, huge refugee wave from Atlantis. More evidence. This is from the Bible. Now, we've all learned that there's a lineage from Adam all the way to Noah and what have you. But did you know that the names have a meaning? They have a significance. And it's a message. We have Adam and Cain. And I will just go down through these pretty quickly, out of time. We can read it out. Man from red earth is possessive. It was dedicated to a fleet of ships. It was wounded by God. Whom is of God is powerful, an adornment in a stream of water, not a current in the shade. You shall be brought out of possession into beauty. This explains how Atlantis was destroyed and the fact that we were possessive. But we do have a bright future. We will be brought out of possession into beauty, into light, into sincerity. Pull out your Bibles and look at the meaning of these words. Prove it to yourselves. Cuba, sunken city. I have a friend in St. Lucia, has this Carib sculptures about this big. How in the world did those natives create these perfectly aligned parallel lines? How did they laser cut these slices? How? You have any idea how small these are and how precisely cut they are? You're looking at an Atlantean artifact. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of Atlantis. This is the gateway to Atlantis, Marie Galante, Guadeloupe. This is what it used to look like. This is Montserrat, west of Garden City. This was a vision that I had back in the 1990s. This temple was dedicated to the wisest female master in Atlantis. It was called Peacock Palace. And you can see the master and her subjects approaching the temple. This was Guadeloupe of that time. This is Garden City, the central city of Atlantis. This was the Hall of Witness. This is the place that the people, most likely most of us, dreaded going to, because we were going to tell our truth. No secrets. This was the Light Citadel, the residence of the most ascended master in Atlantis. The uppermost section was interdimensional. That being was halfway between physical and celestial. Could not be approached. Intelligence was incredible. This is in the area called Poseidon. Yes, there was a Poseidon. Just as mentioned, this was the control center for the power towers. This is how the power towers worked. 35 megahertz lasers cutting through the air all the way to the ionosphere, creating an air vacuum, ionizing the air and bringing ions from the Van Allen belt down into the core, accelerated interdimensionally in this barrel here, like a laser, brought down through the main flute into a pair of very thick, very wide primary secondary coils, tuned to 300 kilohertz and then injected into the planet. And by pulsing that energy, they were able to control weather, as you can see here, creating control upsurge plumes and rotating currents and magnetic fields on the ground that brought in low pressure areas or high pressure to make it rain, dry, cool, etc. But this could also be used for evil, and it was. This is where it all began. The year was 14861, the start of the rebellion in Garden City. Brainwashed individuals and the priesthood driving out the brothers. In this particular scene, they did come forward towards the brothers. They killed them. They clubbed them to death. And this was a daily occurrence for hundreds of years until they had no choice but leave. You probably heard of Anubis, Osiris, and Seth. I had the privilege of having a dream on Osiris and saw what happened. Seth was not Osiris's brother, it was his son. Anubis was also his son, and so was Horus. Seth set up a skirmish outside of the main, this is in Egypt, the Egyptian colony. I took the army up there to see what was going on. Meanwhile, Seth came back, clubbed Osiris to death. Osiris was my father. And yes, I was Anubis. Anubis is just a name that was given to us. But he gave me a last order. And that was to never stop promoting the light and making sure that people wake up and train their ego. There's nothing more important. I've been doing that now for 17,000 years. Osiris was not from here. He was from Orion. This was the end. The towers exploded because of mismanagement. Not a pretty sight. I lived it. I was there. This is what happened to Garden City. There's nothing left. I have very little time left. I'm going to talk about Lemuria. Again, Lemuria has been placed all over the place, and I will prove to you exactly where it was. There's biblical evidence has been mistranslated, and I'll just say it very quickly. The earth was tohu, wasted, and bohu, vague ruins. You can't have vague ruins if the planet is just created. What ruins? What cities were ruined? What was wasted? This is speaking about a destruction. If we go to Jeremiah 4:23, it says, I beheld the earth, and it was wasted and in vague ruins, and the heavens had no light. I beheld the mountains, and they trembled. All the hills moved swiftly. I beheld, there was no man, and the birds of the heavens were gone. I beheld the fruitful places were barren, and all the cities were broken down. Behold this. Isaiah 45:18. He did not create it wasted. Uses the same word, tohu. He did not create the earth wasted because he formed it to be inhabited. So if the earth was wasted and he didn't create it wasted, who wasted it? Who did? Maybe some of you that are here helped do that. Let's go to scientific evidence. You're looking at Mount Toba in Indonesia. You've all heard of the great blast of Krakatau. Its tsunami went across the world twice, flooded many areas twice. It only has 18 scale of explosive power. Look at Mount Toba, 2,800. Huge blast. 75,000 BC, it exploded. In our cells, we have a thing called mitochondria. According to mitochondrial DNA mutation, the population dropped to about 3,000 breeding pairs right on that date. The same happened with animals and fish. Something impacted the whole planet. It was huge. What happened? It was a semi-global cataclysm that almost eradicated all life. I'm going to introduce you to a Hebrew term, Pesha Shamem, and it describes the destruction of Lemuria, and I will show you. It means abomination of desolation. And even Jesus mentions this in Mark. Daniel 8:13. Pesha Shamem Nathan Kodesh Sabah Mirmak. It means, how long will abomination of desolation give holiness and hosts of stars? Hosts of stars, pain. 2,300 days. Hosts of stars. What does Pesha Shamem have to do with Lemuria? And what are these 2,300 days? There's all the references related to Pesha Shamem. Pesha Shamem is shown in Daniel 8:13, related to sunset, sunrise, 12-hour period, which is called Ereb Boker in Daniel 8:14. Ereb Boker, sunset to sunrise vigil, 12 hours, not 24, and it's used 6 times in the Bible. There's the references. Now, Daniel 8:14 talks about 2,300 Ereb Boker, or a total of 69,000 years. Adding that to the end of transgression, 4,216 BC plus 69,000, the end of Lemuria is placed at about 73,000 BC. Now, talking about the 7 days in creation, 7 Ereb Boker times 30 days times 360 days, again, 75,600. If we look at Edgar Casey in The Origin of the Spiritual Species, he claims about 80,000 BC. DNA geologic, what I was talking about, mitochondria, 75,000 BC. Average, 75.9. Variance, 1.3%. Negligible. Error. You probably heard about Kumari Kandam. It's a 15th century Tamil Kandam Puranam, derived from Sanskrit, which means terrestrial kingdom. The Somasundara Bharati also considers Lemuria the cradle of civilization, and Charles McLean, Indian's civil service agent, theorized that Lemuria was the cradle of language and Dravidian beings, and the humans originated from a land beneath the Indian Ocean. In his account, other races migrated from Lemuria, and Tamil writers endorse his book. Bjorn Jamvit of Oslo University claimed that Mauritius was once part of Rhodesia, a supercontinent that included India and Madagascar, as you see there in that picture. Now, here comes James Shershward. He studies Maya tablets, Ramayana epic, and Polynesian writings, and interprets the Burma tablets referring to Mu and places it in the Pacific. Oops. That's not what Tamil said. He made a mistake. And it says it consisted of 7 cities, just as you see in the picture. Well, let's see who's right. The Rosicrucians claimed that Lemuria existed when there was higher atmospheric pressure and darkness due to thicker clouds. Correct. Louis Jacques-Oliot considers that Lemuria was also in the Pacific. Whoops. Not the Indian Ocean, contrary to ancient Oriental writings. And now let's go to science. This is the Pacific Ocean topology. And as you can see here, where there's a continent, there's a thick amount of seal ground. Under the ocean, not that much. So continents must have a lot of seal ground. Seal-like rocks that float over continents with heavier rocks are not significant in the Pacific Ocean. This indicates that the ocean bottom did not sink. Pacific Islands are not part of a sunken continent, only volcanic tips, and volcanoes are aligned as the Pacific plate travels west, creating volcanoes along the line, and plumes from the core rise up and create a volcano. Therefore, Lemuria was not in the Pacific. Case closed. Lemuria was here in the Indian Ocean. Here's Indonesia, India, Saudi Arabia, and this greenish spot follows the contour of what was once subcontinental space. The red dot marks where Lemuria City was at. With that, we come to the end of this presentation. And I think we have 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes for questions. Don't all rush in. Now, it's very difficult for me to hear the sound from the mic because it hollows, so speak it a little slowly so I can make it out.
Earlier, you talked about that Atlantis was at war with Europe. Exactly which European civilization was Atlantis at war with, and what exactly were the two nations, or what were the two civilizations fighting over?
Okay, good question. There is evidence that this war carried all over North Africa and all over Europe, including England, Ireland, all the way almost to Russia. Wherever there was a civilizational light, they followed it. They even went down as low as Chile to cause wars. And as you can see, there's evidence of the blasts on old Peruvian stonework. They even went to India. And we see signs of Vimana warfare and Jonas darts all the way from Afghanistan clear to the east side of India. It was big. You're welcome.
Are you familiar with a land feature called Eye of the Sahara?
I'm sorry, I could not hear that.
Eye of the Sahara?
Island of the Sahara.
Eye of the Sahara. I can show you a picture of it.
Okay.
There's a YouTube video I watched about 2 weeks ago by a channel by the name of Bright Insight. And they're showing this land feature called Eye of the Sahara. I can show it to you.
Yes, now I know. That is a crater impact, and it's on the western coast of Mauritania. That is not the site of Atlantis.
Okay, well, he makes a great case for it. So,
They made a
you or
big
anyone
case
else
about
wants
it.
to
I
check
actually saw the video, and I'm going, first, measure it. The measurements don't go with the writing. And second, there's a lot more than 3 rings there. So it's just people that don't read. They should be digging into this material, which is readily available.
I think he made a great case. So for you or anyone else wants to check out the video. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
On one of your slides, a timeline, you said the age of repression.
Yes.
Are we restarting that, or are we still in it? Which is it?
We're still in it.
When do you know when it ends?
The moment you people start doing research, reading, and not taking information from strangers.
Very good.
We
Thank
have
you.
to trust and verify. This stuff is open to the public.
Very good. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I noticed on one of your slides you had the language of Thoth, or Thoth as you call him, and aren't the emerald tablets his teachings? Have you ever heard of them?
Of which tablets?
The emerald tablets?
Yes, they are fake.
Okay.
They're fake. I could read them. They're a combination of Greek and also Phoenician. I've tried to actually spell them out. It's totally unintelligible, and it's not what they have been translated as. It did come out in the air that they had been faked for promotion. There were 32 tablets, and none of them are intelligible.
And has anybody ever deciphered that language that you saw that was written? That was Thoth's language? I mean, it's like the, what do they call that? The Rosa, what was that?
The Rosette type?
Yeah, Rosetta Stone. Is it sort of like that type of language? That
Actually, totally different. It's made up. Because as you go across, you can see some Greek letters, then it gets a little bit of Aramaic, then it gets a little bit of Phoenician, and you're going, well, which one is it? And so you try to translate each one, put in a form a word, try it in Phoenician, try it in Greek, try it in Hebrew. Meaningless.
Are you talking about the one that was in your slide? That language of Thoth?
No, the actual emerald tablet.
Oh, okay.
I
I'm
spent-
talking about the one that's in your slide.
Oh, in the slide.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't figure it out.
Ah, okay. So nobody's deciphered that yet.
No one. But with closer examination, you can see the repeat of specific letters, and you can tell what seems to be an augmentation of a meaning or an inflection, which means that this was an audio language, which means the way you said the letter was the meaning, and that's really tough to translate. So maybe in a couple of years,
Yeah, it
I'll
sounds
figure someone
interesting.
out. But it is a significant finding, and there's definitely
Yeah.
more of it down there. Everything down there is that.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
That's it. Thanks, everyone. Light be with you.